Okay, so before we get into the Gemara, just to share a little bit about today and the coming days. So we have 4 days now between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, right? Sukkot is Monday night, Tuesday. Today is Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, 4 days. These 4 days are referred to as, in Yiddish, you say, God's Namen, God's name. Hashem's name has 4 letters, a Yud, a Hey, a Vav, and then another Hey. And each day, the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, correlates with another one of Hashem's names. It's called God's Namen. It's a special time, these 4 days. So I'm going to explain what this is and connect it to, perhaps, a famous statement. I can't remember who it was who said it. But one of the, I think it was not a young man today, right? One of the Rebbes, as a youngster, asked his father, who was a Rebbe at the time, after Yom Kippur, said, what now? We reached the pinnacle, the height, the absolute height. What now? So his father told him in Yiddish, Jetzt darf man erst Teshuva tun. Now we only have to begin to do Teshuva. What? Elul, Rosh Hashanah, 10 days of repentance, Yom Kippur, Neilah, we're at the height, pinnacle. Now we have to do Teshuva. So what's the meaning of this statement? So lots have been said and lots been offered, but perhaps it's related to these 4 letters of Hashem's name, what it means. And in brief, it goes something like this, I think, perhaps. We talked about on, when was it? On Erev Yom Kippur. We did a class Erev Yom Kippur, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this idea that in Yom Kippur we reach the 5th level of the neshama. There's 5 tefillos, 5 prayers. We reach the 5th level of the neshama, which is beyond understanding, beyond desire, beyond feeling, beyond behavior. It's the essential state of the Jew who says, I am a Yid. And when a person connects to that essence conviction of I am a Yid, then everything else gets transformed. His willpower is another level. His understanding is another level, because that's who he is. His feelings, behavior, all that. So Yom Kippur, especially in Neilah, as the rabbi talked about just before Neilah, he spoke just before Blew the Shofar. He talked about how it was the cry, the Shema Yisrael is the cry from the essential Jew who says, I am a Yid. And at that level, all Yidden are one. The rabbi talked about that. So it's that essential state. But what could happen is, and the rabbi alluded to that also when he spoke, is that this very lofty feeling and state of being, which is a kind of romantic notion. I am a Yid, it's very beautiful. It's very powerful. When you feel it in Yom Kippur, you're in a different place, you know. I was remarking to my wife last night that, you know, after Havdalah, you stayed on for Ma'ariv and Havdalah afterwards?
Yeah, sure.
So after Havdalah, and then after Kiddush Tavana, so like on adrenaline from all Yom Kippur, haven't eaten 26 hours, whatever it is, 27 hours, however long it's been taking.
Yeah.
But we got to dance, a couple of guys dancing.
Yeah.
You know, Samachta, because Sukkot is about to come.
Still on salt, you know.
Yeah, this was the order by the Rebbe. After Havdalah, there was, would declare 3 times, Good Yom Tif, and everybody would go dancing. So we're dancing on a high, and then I tell my wife that as soon as I ate something, all of a sudden I lost my energy. Yeah, as soon as I ate something, like my
You went into physical.
I went to physical mode. It's a funny thing. Yeah, I haven't eaten anything, and I'm dancing, and I'm excited, I'm happy, and then I eat something, all of a sudden, you remind yourself as a body that needs to be fed, and all of a sudden you start feeling growly. Yeah. So this happens, right? So all to say that on Yom Kippur, the The idea is so powerful and so lofty that what could happen is that it stays lofty and almost becomes detached from who you are in a regular day. It could be. But the challenge then is to take that I am a Jew and make it permeate and make it sustainable, make it set the course for everything else. Right now, a person cannot live 24/7 in an existential state of being. You can't. You can't live in an existential state of being. Existential moments,
You mean
practically speaking, you can't wake up every morning and live on an existential level. And Yom Kippur,
You're nuts.
you go crazy. On Yom Kippur, you can live in an existential state. I am a Yid, and that's what's fueling you. But once Yom Kippur is over, if you take that and bring it into the other four levels. We talked about the other four levels, the other four prayers, behaviors, emotions, intelligence, willpower. It's got to permeate all of that.
It has to harness those.
Harness exactly. And that's the challenge of the Teshuva that comes after Yom Kippur. Perhaps to take that feeling of Yom Kippur and make it become the fuel for everything else.
Almost like the dominating force.
That's right. And that's perhaps the 4 days now, the 4 names of Hashem, the 4 letters of Hashem's name. The 4 letters of Hashem's name as explained in Igeres HaTeshuva, book 3 of Tanya, 12-chaptered essay on Teshuva. Over there, he explains at length the 4 letters of Hashem's name. The context there is, we talked about this idea of Teshuva. When did we talk about it? Maybe before Shabbos Shuvah. We talked about the different translations of the word Teshuva. And one of the translations is to restore, right? To restore the connection of my soul to Hashem. When I sin, I've taken the energy Hashem gave me, my soul, and dragged it into a place of negativity, and have to restore that connection. And there, the Alter explains this connection on a Kabbalistic, almost geographical level, explaining what the 4 letters of Hashem's name is, and explaining how a Jew has within him those 4 letters of Hashem's name, because they correlate. If a Jewish soul comes from Hashem, then the powers of Hashem's name, as it were, the powers of Hashem's personality, so to speak, is invested in the Jew, which is these 4 letters of Hashem's name. And then when a person sins and corrupts that connection, he has to restore it, right? That's essentially what he explains there. But he goes to explain each of these 4 letters of Hashem's name, what they mean in the Jews' service of Hashem and what they mean in the divine system. And essentially, those 4 letters parallel the 4 levels we explained that's before the 5th level, right? The 4 levels of prayer that precipitate the 5th level, the essential level, I am a Jew. The first letter, Yud, is, as he explained there, Yud is a dot, it's a point. So it doesn't have any width or breadth yet. It's just a dot. And the interesting thing about a dot is, he doesn't say this there, but this is an interesting phenomenon. A dot is not defined by what it is. A dot is defined by what it's not. Because in theory, if you can make the dot smaller, you would, right? You're trying to get to a point. What's the center point of something? It's not defined by its actual space. It's defined by what it's not, right? Because in theory, if you can take a magnifying glass and blow up the point, you'd go ahead and make it smaller. And then if you take that tiny dot and blow it up even more, you make it even smaller, right? Because if you're trying to get to the actual center point, it's not defined by its own.
It seems like a dot is a reference to something else.
Exactly. A dot is a
like
reference.
A line is defined by a space between 2 points.
Correct.
Then you have an established definition. But without that reference.
That's right. So a shape is defined by how much space it takes up. But a point is defined by what it's not taking up. It's just a reference to something else. It's a reference to, here's the center of it, but it's not really the center, because if you dig deeper, you can't really define it, right? Because that which it's transcendent a little bit, even though it connects to the rest of the system, but it's a point. It's the point of it.
A circle too, the center.
Right.
But it's only there if you have a circle.
That's right. That's right. So it's that which transcends everything you're looking at, but very much connected to it. That's the Yud. So in the person's soul, this is the willpower. It's the willpower. The willpower, which is, or a different way of putting this is, it's a similar level, but it's a little bit different the way he puts it there in Igeres HaTeshuva, which is something like this. It's the superconscious from which ideas emerge. When an idea comes into your head, you know that there's a part of your brain that's capable of producing that idea because the idea came to you. But at the same time, it's not as if you can somehow open up the drawer of the idea machine in your brain and find all the ideas you're ever going to think of.
It's the infinite universe.
It's the infinite universe in the mind.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's the interface between that which is beyond and that which is conscious.
You have a communication with,
that's right.
With the infinite.
That's right. There's a beautiful poem written by, it's in my brain from I don't know how long ago, written by an artist describing what it's like to conceive of a creative piece of art. And he describes in very beautiful terms, describing like an ocean. And the bottom line is that in order to get to a true creative insight, you have to stop thinking about everything. When you're busy thinking about a certain, when you're busy thinking about a certain thing, you're not going to get anything creative because you're thinking about that thing and you're locked into that particular version of thinking. But when you can like let go of all the versions of thinking, then you have to like make space for that part of your creative mind to just allow something to emerge, right? So it's like an interface between, like you said, like the infinite possibilities and the specific. So it's kind of like that's why it's like a point, which is like it's the center of all existence, but you can't really define what that is.
It's nothing, but it's everything.
It's nothing, but it's everything. It's the center of all existence from which everything else emerges, right? So this is kind of parallel to willpower in the sense that you can't really define always why you want something or how it is that your want just animates everything, but it just does. Because it's at the center of your consciousness is my desire to connect to something. So that's the Yud, right? In our service of Hashem, this is like we described it before Yom Kippur as the person says, I want you, Hashem. In some ways, it's similar to faith in Hashem. Understand, don't understand, feel, don't feel, I believe in you. I believe in you, God, because this is the truth that I want. Right? It's a faith, it transcends. So it's the center point you can't really touch, but it's the center of the whole picture. Right? So the I am a Yid has to be drawn into, I have faith in you, Hashem. I want you, Hashem. Right? The Yom Kippur experience has to be drawn into the Yud. And from there, it goes to the Hey. The Hey already has expansiveness. It has a image. It's drawn right to left, up and down.
So it has definitions.
It has definitions. This then is parameters. This is Bina. This is the level of Bina. This is the level of understanding, comprehension. This idea of Hashem, this desire, this faith in the truth of Hashem is then drawn into an understanding and a picture of who God is, what his purpose is, what his plan is, how he interacts with our world. This is an understanding.
So this is sensory
perception. This is understanding. This is the next thing. This is intelligence. So my relationship to Hashem is now intellectual, but it doesn't start from there. It starts from Yom Kippur. I am a Yid, the fifth level. It transcends even the Yud He Vav He. Actually, in Tanya, he'll connect that to Koitzel Shal Yud. Over there, he connects that to desire. And it's a little bit different. The stroke above the Yud, right? The little Yud has a little stroke pointing up, as if something transcends it completely. And actually, in Chassidus, it points to the pasuk which says that in Yom Kippur, Lefnei Hashem titaru, before God you shall be purified. So the literal meaning is you're purified before God, as in before the presence of God in the temple. But Chassidus translates it in a little bit of a kind of like a almost literalistic level. Lefnei Hashem, before the name of Hashem, titaru, you are purified. You're purified because you transcend beyond the name of Hashem, right? But then that's Yom Kippur, beyond the name of Hashem. I am a Yid connected to you, irrespective of how I understand, feel, or anything. Even beyond my faith, I just am a Yid. But then it's got to be drawn into the 4 days now, the 4 letters of Hashem's name. First, the faith in Hashem. Then the Hey, understanding of God. Understanding, appreciating Hashem, learning about Hashem. What does he want? How does he work? How does he connect to our world? These are the 10, understanding the 10 spheres, understanding the world of Atzilus. This is what we learn about in Chassidus. Studying Torah in general, but Chassidus in particular. Torah talks about what Hashem wants of you and how you should behave. And Chassidus talks about who God is and why he wants you to behave in all these ways, right? So it's Torah in general, but Chassidus and Kabbalah in particular, in which you get to know God himself. That's the Hey. Now then it comes the letter Vav, and the letter Vav is a line that goes from top to bottom. Now what's that? That is to take the ideas, all the understanding you have of Hashem, and draw it down to be personal. This is the emotional. Not that I understand Hashem in the abstract, but I feel for it. It takes over my emotions. I love it. I'm in awe of it. I appreciate the beauty of it. I'm driven by it. It gets drawn into my emotions. Faith, transcendent connection to Hashem in the Yud, into the Hey, my understanding of God, appreciation of Hashem. And then the Vav comes down, draws it down from the abstract into this is how I feel. The Vav also is, right, the letter Vav is equals 6. Right? Aleph is 1, Bay is 2, and so on, and Vav is 6, the numerical value of the letter Vav. And there are 6 emotional capacities, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoid, and Yesod. 6 emotional capacities as explained in Kabbalah. So this is about being driven and being emotionally invested in that which I understand about God. In awe, in love, driven by it, humbled before it, all the various different emotions that we are to invest in our relationship with Hashem. Now finally we get to the last Hey. The last Hey parallels the Sefirah of Malchus. Now Hey also, the same as the first. Hey is expansion, definition, right? So, right, the first Hey is an expansion of the letter, of the Yud, right? Yeah. The Yud is an awareness of the truth of Hashem, this faith in Hashem, this desire for Hashem because I'm aware of the truth of it, and then it's expanded into my understanding of God. The Vav is my emotional attachment to God, and where is it expanded into in the letter Hey? It's expanded into thought, speech, and action. Thought, speech, and action. This is the level of nefesh that we described before Yom Kippur, the level of the soul that's all about behavior. Right? So before Yom Kippur, we described it in climbing upward. We're not relating to God on an actionable level. We're not even relating to God on an emotional level, not even relating to God on an intellectual level, not relating to God on the desire level. We're relating to God on an existential level. I am a Yid.
So then after Yom Kippur is the Yom Kippur?
Beyond, Yom Kippur is beyond the Yud, right? Because the Yud is, I want you, God. And the Yom Kippur is, I am with you, Hashem, right? So before Yom Kippur, we described it from bottom up, that we're stripping away all the levels. We're not defined by our behaviors. We're not defined by our emotions. We're not defined by our understanding. We're not defined by our desire. We're defined just by being a Yid, being one with you, Hashem. That's Yom Kippur. And after Yom Kippur, you got to take that back down to all the levels. Take that I am a Yid and bring it into, therefore I want you and I have faith in you, God. Therefore I understand you and spend time to get to know you, the Hey. And then finally into the Vav, therefore I feel for you and I'm driven by you, I'm passionate about you, I love you and I'm in awe of you and so on. And then bring that into the lower Hey, and therefore I behave for you, I think for you, I speak for you, and I act for you, right? So it's like before Yom Kippur, you're stripping away all the levels and getting to the core essence, I'm a Yid. And after Yom Kippur, you got to rebuild your whole self. But now now built around the core, I am a Yid. So you got to build back the letters of Hashem's name, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, these 4 days. Guts Namen. Right? You know, the Hey, we talked about the Hey being the second Hey, being thought, speech, and action. You know, giving all that emotion, expression, and manifestation into the Hey, thought, speech, and action. So you can, if you look at the letter Hey, right, the letter Hey has a bar on top, a bar on the right side that's connected to the bar on top, and then a space and a top bar between the top bar and the left suspended leg. Right, that's the Hey. So those 3 symbolize thought, speech, and action. The top is thoughts. The top bar is thoughts. Right? It's most closely linked to me, even though my thoughts are not me, right? Because I can switch my thoughts. I can think about that which is, you know, antagonistic to me in theory, right? I can choose my thoughts. I can change them. Emotions I can change, but they're much more difficult to change because emotions are really much more connected to me. But the thoughts are even less so, which is why thoughts are called in Chassidus elavush. Like the thought, speech, and action are referred to as lavushim, which means garments of the soul. There are ways in which the soul expresses itself, right? They express itself in thought. I express myself to myself in thought, which is why I can change my thoughts. Okay, but that's the top bar. It's most closely linked to me. Connected to that on the right is speech. Speech is disconnected from me, but not entirely. You can only hear my voice if you're in close proximity to me. And it only lasts so long as the breath that I invest in it projects the sound. I stop talking and the voice is gone. Right? So it's outside of me, but still very much attached to me. That's the right bar of the hay, where it's attached to thought, right? Because we're supposed to be thinking about how we speak. Actually, the Alter Rebbe points out somewhere that all speech must have thought. Even if you can speak without thinking, right? You can, no, meaning you can be thinking about one thing and saying something else.
Oh, right.
That's only possible if the words you're saying are words you thought about earlier many times. So let's say a person's very familiar with Tehillim, they can end up saying Tehillim without even thinking about the words they're saying. I'm not recommending that practice. You should not be doing that. But in theory, you can do that. And the reason is because you spend a lot of time thinking about Tehillim in the past. Right? So all speech must have an element of thought in it. So that's the right bar, which is connected to the top line of the hay, top line thought, connected to the right bar, hay, the right bar, which is speech. So the speech comes down as in it comes out of me, but it's still very much attached to my thoughts. And then there's the small little suspended hay on the left, the small little suspended leg on the left, that's action. Because action is detached from me. I can do an action, walk away, and the action's still there. I craft something, I walk away from it, and what I crafted is still there. With my speech, I talk, I walk away, my words are no longer here. Right? But if I write something down on a paper, I can walk away. After 120, the paper is still there with the ink on it. Right? Because action is completely detached from me. That's why the left hay is suspended. Right? So all to say, the last letter of Hashem's name, hey, the last letter of Hashem's name, the hey, symbolizes the part of me that's invested in projecting outwards, the levushim, the exterior, the expression of thought, speech, and action. And thus this becomes the challenge of these 4 days to take the inspiration of Yom Kippur, the existential attachment that we experience in Yom Kippur, I am a Yid, and bring it into the 4 levels of our soul, the 4 conscious levels of our soul, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey expressed in God's name, which is connected to each of the 4 days between now and Sukkot. So this is the Teshuva, the post-Yom Kippur Teshuva. The post-Yom Kippur Teshuva is to make sure that your attachment to Hashem that you feel on Yom Kippur doesn't remain a romantic notion that we shelf away, God forbid, in Yom Kippur to revisit next year Yom Kippur, as the rabbi put it last night. But rather to take that connection, take that feeling and bring it into everything else. Just a way to personalize it, give it a little more personalized example. A similar thing is in the relationship between husband and wife. Torah compares the relationship between man and God to husband and wife. It's the whole book of Shir Hashirim. The whole book of the Song of Songs is a metaphor. It's a romantic poem, but it's a metaphor between God and the Jewish people. I'm to my beloved is to me. Read the simple text. It's talking about a man and a woman, but it's a metaphor for a relationship with Hashem, right? The Gemara refers to the giving the Torah as a chuppah, like a wedding. Okay, so in a relationship between a husband and wife, you have sometimes very nice and romantic gestures. It comes to an anniversary, it comes to a birthday, and you express beautiful feelings toward your spouse and write a nice card and a thoughtful gift and all the beautiful things that you do, right? And then the next morning, you got to get back to sweeping the floor and taking the garbage out. And so there could be a person who would make the tragic mistake of being very beautiful, romantic on an anniversary night or whatever it is. And then the next day go about his business as if nothing happened. And his wife is asking to do chores and says, I have to run to work. What happened to the night before? What happened to the whole romantic gestures?
Yeah.
I felt it. It wasn't like I didn't feel it. I really felt it.
Yeah.
But now I have life.
Last night was last night.
But now I have life.
Today's today.
And of course, it's not the way it's supposed to be. And that would be a failed opportunity in these deep connections. So it's not as if somehow tomorrow morning you're going to do a different chore. You'll still pick up the same garbage. But now you didn't go with all, if you're doing it right, you're doing it now with a whole different smile on your face. You're doing it with a whole different appreciation because I'm doing something with my wife here. I'm doing something with my spouse, for my family, for us. Right? So the same thing is true of the post-Yom Kippur Avodah, the post-Yom Kippur serving Hashem. So in theory, a person could say, oh, that was so beautiful. So what a wonderful connection to Hashem. But now it's Friday. I got to go back to my life. No, the same tefillin, the same davening, but now done with a whole new appreciation because we had such a beautiful night together last night.
Right.
We had such a beautiful day. Yid and Hashem had such a beautiful day together. So now my davening in the morning is a whole different davening. It's technically the same thing, but it's a whole different thing.
It is. It is.
It's right. And that's the way it's supposed to be. To take the feelings we had in Yom Kippur, to take this romantic connection we felt with Hashem, this state of existential being, I am a Yid, I am yours, and bring that into all the four levels of our soul, into our conscious experience, into our feelings for Hashem, understandings for Hashem, our behaviors, our thoughts, our speech, and our action, and so on.
It's like we're in the Shabbat breakfast.
Something like that.
Yom Kippur was marriage, and now it's like the...
Yeah, so there actually is that metaphor that the Elul is like the dating period. Rosh Hashanah is the ring. Yom Kippur, the ring and chuppah. Yom Kippur is the yichud room, the seclusion. And then there is 7 days of feasting. That's the celebration. And then the last day, Simchas Torah, is after the celebration is over. Husband and wife go home together. Right. So the 4 days now between Yom Kippur and Sukkot is like the time after you come out of the yichud room before you go to the.
Right.
Yeah, there's that metaphor given. Okay, Yidden. Successful post Yom Kippur Teshuva to everybody in our preparations for Sukkot. Sorry? Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
The first letter, the Yud.
Yeah.
You said it was, this is the willpower.
Yeah. It's.
And it seems like all these things build off of from the top down.
Yeah.
Like the Yud helps to give you the expansiveness.
That's right.
And then that gives the emotion.
That's right.
But this first Yud, it's like sometimes you hear people say, how do I get a desire? How do I, for example, some people may not have, well, they're not driven
Right.
to make lots of money or something. Those people, they have that desire. So this seems to be something that's God-given. It's not something that
Yeah, so that's the
cultivate. How do we approach this 4 days? How do we
yeah.
take that?
How do you get the
Yeah, I'm not saying well, but
yeah. No.
how do you take that first letter?
How do you get
start?
In other words, once you have the first letter, everything else flows.
You know what to do.
It's a lot of work, but you know where.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but you know where to go. Yeah. So good question. You said it's like a person who has an inherent attachment to that thing.
Right.
That's the Yom Kippur. In other words, if a person reminds himself, I am a Yid, then that's what he wants. That's what I want. That's right. It starts off with, this is who I am. What do you mean, why should I want? Because this is who I am. This is me. Like, you know, it's like Chassidus uses a similar example for the person's desire to have a home. Person's desire to have a home. Where does the desire to have a home come from? Does a person thought and philosophized about the beauty of owning a home? Rarely anybody does that, if at all. Why does a person want to have a home? Because I need to have a place, because I have to have a place for me. That's what a home is. You can have a beautiful hotel you stay in, and every week you switch hotels, but you don't feel like you. You have to have my place. So where does a want come from? The want, that's a real want, not a want for ice cream cake. That's a want that comes and goes. A real want, the Gemara actually gives two examples. It's a home and a spouse. The Gemara says, someone who doesn't have a home is not really a full, complete man, because he doesn't have a place he can call his own. And the similar thing is a person doesn't have a wife yet, because when a person has a spouse, they have someone they can be themselves with. They have a space they can be themselves with, and they have someone else they can be themselves with. Right? So a real desire comes from the I am. I need to be me, and therefore I need a home. I need to be me, and I need to have a spouse to share that me with. So I need to be me. Why? Because I'm me. I have to be me. Right? So when a person gets to the me as a yid, I'm a yid. What do you mean what I have to want Hashem? Because I'm a yid, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Yom Kippur. That's the taking Yom Kippur and bringing it into the levels. I'm a yid. That's what we declared when we screamed Shema Yisrael as a yid on Yom Kippur. Because I am a yid. I am yours, Hashem. Me and you are one. And therefore, all I want is you. And therefore, all I'm going to do is study about you. And therefore, all I'm going to do is feel about you and think about you and talk about you and do for you.
So Yom Kippur actually is the way now the jump starts.
That's right. That's right. That's the Teshuva post Yom Kippur. That once you felt that, once you connect to that, to make sure it doesn't stay in that feeling, but to make sure it comes down into all the various different other levels. Because a person could say, I am yours, Hashem, and then not let that become the catalyst for everything else. Right? But that's the challenge. To take all that feeling, all that existential self we felt, I am a yid, and make sure it jumpstarts the rest of the system, to use your words. Yeah. Okay, wonderful day, everybody, and a successful post Yom Kippur Teshuva for everyone. It was indeed a very special Yom Kippur, Baruch Hashem. Okay, wonderful day, everybody.
I was just thinking about what you were